Trailblazers swept despite being the higher-seeded team. They are the first top 3 seed to be swept in a best-of-7 series in the first round ever. That is also interesting.
Okay.
Wow.
I want to know where they go from here because the GM was speaking in the sort of exit press conference, and he said, I don't want to overreact to what happened in 4 games and underreact to what happened the entire season. Byron, where do you think that they should go here?
I agree with him as far as that's concerned because you can't take away the fact that they had a great season. And they getting to a 3 seed, nobody, I know none of us ever thought they would be that at the beginning of the season. So, you have to go off to Portland Trailblazers for the season that they had. Now, having said that, to get swept, in a series like this when you have home court advantage and the way they lost, they were giving up big numbers to this team. So I think, number one, you got 2 fantastic guards, in CJ and Damian. There's no doubt about that. I think you keep those 2 young guys together because they got a chemistry amongst themselves that is unlike a lot of teams. And then the third thing, I think you got to add a third piece. You need another superstar, so to speak.
You saw those numbers up there. I don't know if we can put them back up. I mean, where do they get a third piece if this is kind of the cap stuff they have to deal with? And I want to make that note that when people say, oh, is it time to break up CJ and Dame? I don't think anyone, or at least smart basketball people, are saying those 2 don't work well together. I think the CJ and Dame are good. It's just, do you need to get rid of one of them to get something back in return that can add more variety to your squad?
Adding a third piece, you might have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And what I mean by that is you got guys, and specifically Evan Turner and Myers Leonard, it's almost like dead money holding you back. And you got to figure out a way to get more cap flexibility there. But then the other thing is you got a guy in Nurkic who was a big part of their success, but man, this might sound outrageous. He's going to be a restricted free agent. You got to figure out how much do you want to devote to paying him. And I think where the game is going, you want your centers to be quicker,
a lot more mobile,
and more mobile, more athletic, and the ability to play down, to switch on the smaller guys. And I'm not saying that the bigs are disappearing, but they're becoming more situational, right? I need a Yusuf Nurkic when we're paying Embiid. I need a Yusuf Nurkic when we're paying Cousins. But when those guys aren't out there, and for a lot more and more teams, those guys aren't out there. A lot more guys, teams are going smaller and faster. I need a small, fast guy. And so I don't know how much I can pay a guy who I'm going to use a handful of times a year.
I always feel bad for Portland because they got hit by that summer of 2016. Outrageous salaries, sort of, cap smoothing would have helped a lot of people. I'm just saying.
My favorite story, when we were doing the free agency special and someone whispered, I think it was Michael Schwartz, whispered in my ear, hey, by the way, Evan Turner, $70 million. I thought he said $7 million, and I said out loud, 7? That's too much.
Right.
And they said, no, not 7, 70.
70.
But
way too much.
But again, that whole summer we were seeing those contracts because that's what the rules said you had to do by the CBA that they all agreed to, and then now you're stuck with
That's where they got in trouble.
Books.
That's where Portland got in trouble that summer.
I want to get into the Twitter exchange also between one of the Blazers stars, C.J. McCollum, and a reporter. McCollum received a flagrant foul in Game 4 for this play against Etuan Moore. That prompted NBC Sports Northwest reporter Jason Quick to tweet and then later delete this, quote, frustration foul by CJ, who has always bordered on cheap and dirty. So he later issued an apology, and then this was CJ's response. A lion doesn't concern itself with the opinion of sheep. However, do not disrespect my character. You said what you said. You meant it. Have the same energy next time you want to write a story or get a quote from the one who has, quote, always bordered on cheap and dirty. Byron, how do you feel about the clap back?
I love the clap back from CJ. I do. I mean, just as a former player, you got a reporter who uses his pen to get his point across. Probably never played the game in his life. And you going at a young man who I've seen CJ play a lot of basketball. I've never seen him do anything dirty or cheap. So for you to go at him, and he was right, don't disrespect my character. He is not that type of guy. And maybe this was out of frustration. They're getting beat 3-0. They're on the brink of losing this one and getting swept. So maybe it was a little frustration. But to say this is the type of player he is totally wrong. So I have no problem with him coming back and letting him know that, I'm a lion, you're a sheep. I don't concern myself with what you say, but do not go after my character. And I think that's where he got most upset about. And I agree with him. I would have did the same thing.
Our boss, Kevin Wildes, always has to have conversations with me because sometimes I say things about owners,
really?
that are
you
not.
say all kinds of things that management has conversations with you about.
Yes, Kevin Wildes has a lot of conversations.
People out in the world don't realize that, but that does happen.
One of the things he says is criticize the act, not the person,
Yeah.
right? If
Right.
someone behaves like a moron, saying they're behaving like a moron or they did something moronic, don't call them a moron. If he did a play that bordered on cheap and dirty, say that play bordered on cheap, not that player, because like Coach said, none of us think of C.J. McCollum like that.
No.
I've never heard that from anyone around the league. It's like when Vince Carter undercut
Right.
McCall. No one is out here saying
Like
Vince Carter's
a dirty player.
Yeah,
No, never.
it's just an unfortunate play.
Yep.
And so I'm with Coach. C.J. is 100% within his right to do that. I just like the whole Aesop's Fable, Lions. Just make your point, bro. It don't have to be an Aesop Fable about it.
All right.